And it says, and when he had opened the third seal, this is the scroll, and every time a seal was cracked open, a horse was sent. And he said, I heard the third beast say, this is speaking of the seraphim around the throne of God, said, come and see. And I beheld, John said, and I beheld, and lo, I looked and I saw a black horse. A black horse. Now, if you can think about a black horse, oftentimes I don't have a negative connotation to a black horse. You know why? Because black horses are so beautiful. They're so graceful. When you see a black horse, it sometimes even seems rare to see one. But here it reminds me of not so much of the beauty of the black horse, but of the judgment that God sends. And if you're saved, you will never see this black horse come to bring judgment upon you. But this black horse, it represents the deprivation of food, which speaks of a time in the tribulation where there would be famine. Yes, there would be famine. If we look at Revelation in chapter 6, as we transition through these horses, remember Matthew chapter 24 is a companion guide to the book of Revelation. And so as we read these verses here in 5 and 6, we also must turn to Matthew chapter 24 and verse number 7 so that we can get the full illumination of what God is saying. And it says, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be, there's that word, the deprivation of food. And then it says, and pestilence, and earthquakes, in divers places. Oh my God. Did we not have just the other day earthquakes in divers places? Earthquakes going on in different places almost around the same time. Now, the Bible is not guessing at these events. God, in his foreknowledge, already knew what the earth would do before it started to tremble. And it would behoove us to take heed to the signs and the seasons and the movement of God and the prophetic understanding of Scripture, that what God says he means, and what he means he does, and he will complete the work that he started, the work of redemption. It says, for nation shall rise against nation. Right now, we are seeing a foretaste of that, of nations rising against nations. Yes, and there shall be famines. What does this mean? First, self-sufficiency will be stripped away. You better eat now before it's too late. Self-sufficiency shall be stripped away. Right now, the world is operating on its own self-dependency. They give you self-help books. And the problem with the self-help book is that you can't help yourself. There's a problem with the self-help philosophy, Because what they promote, and I understand it, and I have to sometime, navigate the murky waters of what we call self-sustainability and self-sufficiency. But listen, saints, this world is sufficient within itself. This world says, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. This world tells you to not depend on a God, because if you depend on a God, that means that you weak. And the world is one that says that it is strong, it is self-dependent, self-sufficient, and we don't need no help from your God. So God says, I'll tell you what I do during the tribulation period. Right now, you have a grace period in this 69th week that we're in. We have a grace period. But he says one day he's going to strip away all of the self-sufficiency of man, all of man's ability to do what he wants to do for himself. Now he's going to put them in a position where they have to depend on God. He's going to strip away self-sufficiency. God has often permitted famines to fulfill his divine purpose and to cause humanity to turn back to him. Famines are often brought about for at least two reasons in the Bible. First, famines are brought about because of God's judgment for rebellion and disobedience. Israel every now and then will become rebellious and would be disobedient, and God would rise up a famine to draw them back so that they can look up to the hills from which cometh their help. We must be careful not to be self-sufficient, but that we might find all of our help in the Lord. Am I right about it? And so he says, I'm going to strip that away. And then the second reason, to allow for the testing of our faith so that we might know that we are trusting in God. God already knows whether we're trusting in him, but sometimes he got to take you through a trial. He has to take you through a test so that you can get the testimony. And when you get the testimony, you will look back at yourself and say, Lord, I trusted you through that. And Lord, you brought me through. And then you encourage it. You're able to look up to him and say, Lord, in the midst of my storm, I saw how you helped me to trust in you. How you strengthened me, Lord, when I was weak, when I couldn't help myself. Lord, you strengthened me in my weakness. You strengthened me to stand in the midst of my storm. Yes, he allows us to be tested. Someone said a faith that's not tested is a faith that's not worth having. How do you even know if you have true saving faith if your faith is not tested, if you don't have a trial, if you don't have a hiccup or a boo-boo, if you just don't, you have to go through something to know about something. Sometimes we don't look like we've been through because God has really helped us. I'm going to tell you like it is. I don't look like what I've been through. I'm going to tell you the truth. What I've been through, I should have been a child on crack. Crack baby. I should have been aborted, but I don't look like what I've been through. Been abandoned, cast aside. Oh, but I don't look like what I've been through. Moving from house to house and home to home, trying to find somebody to look up to that would lead and guide, but I don't look like what I've been through. And all of that is because of Jesus Christ. What about you? You don't look like what you've been through. Because why? God gave you a test and a testimony, and if you were to tell the full scope of your test, of your testimony, without nobody judging you for it, you would blow the mind of the kingdom of hell. You would blow the mind. Why? Because of God's glory on your life. You don't look like what you've been through. Some of y'all been sick. Some of y'all been down. Some of y'all been not be able to get up and do the things that you want to do. But somehow today, You're able to get up and walk and smile. You're able to get up. Don't look like what you've been through. Because God, he helped you. Am I right about it?